Good morning, everyone. We're back to work on our box for our journal. Since yesterday, I have inked around all the edges and the seams on the inside and on the outside. My next move is to add all the pieces I cut and inked, all the designer paper, which I've used Tracie Fox's kit, Nature's Epiphany, which I will link in the description box below. So we will put on all the outside pieces of the designer paper, and then we will add on the straps, which I have made, and I can show you how to make them. They're just 1-inch strips. I've rounded the edges and just made them to look how I wanted to look, so I doubled up. I made 2 1-inch strips, and then I made 2 half-inch strips, and I folded them all to go where I want them to go. I'll show you. And I also made the faux hinges. I made 2 to go on, and I'm not sure if we wanted a couple more, so I made 2 extra ones. So I will show you how I do that as well, with my awl and my wooden blocks. So let's get started. We'll start off by putting on the designer paper. Okay, so I take my Dries Clear Art Glitter Glue, and one thing I don't put on is, oh yes, I usually don't put on the inside of the flap cover, because I normally, or sometimes, I have done a policy envelope closure, and that's where I like to hide, the mechanics and the workings of the buttons that I'm using. So we'll put that on. Then you want 2 of each. I use 100-pound cardstock, 110-pound cardstock, and you want 2 of each section for the outside, and then 1 for the inside. So you want designer paper for the outside, and I cover the inside as well, just because it looks more finished that way. And sometimes I have to do a little bit of, I guess that fits okay. Sometimes I dry fit the designer paper before I glue it down, only because in the past I've thought I've measured properly and been very accurate, and had not been accurate, and had it not fit, and then had to rip it back off. So hopefully that does not happen today. I'll dry fit it and adjust it as needed. To make sure everything fits properly. Because you don't want to overlap the score marks, because it will bind up the box. And we don't want the box to get all bound up. We want it to open and close easily. Because we want the journal, or whatever we decide to put in the box, to slide in and out with ease. And this paper that I'm using is not really got a clear direction. I don't think there's any text on this paper, so I can put it any which direction I like if I like the darker section on this side, or if I want the darker section on this side. It doesn't really matter. It's a really, really nice, it's beautiful paper, number 1. But number 2, it's kind of nice that it doesn't have a certain direction, and I can use it any which way I think looks better. So is that going to be a little bit too big? go. And we'll put the front one on. Usually you're pretty safe doing the front pieces. Depending on where you want to put your faux hinges, you know, if you want them on the side, if you want them on the bottom, that usually determines which sections I leave off. Because I'm going to want to cover up the back side of the brads, because I don't want them to catch anything that I'm going to put inside. So far I've got the outside covered, and now I'm going to start covering the inside. And because of how I've made these, well, I'm going to hold off on that. I will put the face on this. You want to try and get rid of as many pieces as you can as you're doing this, because you don't want to become confused. As to what goes where. Plus it gets it out of your way. And you can see, sometimes you can see if you decide you want to change things. If I decide I want to change the hinges to here instead of on the bottom, I can do so if I have it already set up. So one thing I haven't done yet is I haven't cut any braces. Usually in the corners of this part of the box, I usually I'll cut extra braces, because this tends to take a lot of stress. So sometimes I'll put extra braces on the inside here, and what I'll do is I'll cut a piece of manila folder 1 inch, and I'll score it and fold it in half and put it in the corners here as extra extra protection, you know, because it gets a lot of wear. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything different on the bottom, so I can add that. I've decided today to use magnets to hold the closure closed instead of using the Tim Holtz buckles. Uh-oh. Is that going to be too big? See, sometimes, let's see if this one's a little bit smaller. I am not perfect in my measuring. Yeah, that's going to be just a smidgen too wide for that bottom section. So I am going to just take a sliver off. Wait a minute. Let's get this straight. That's the whole thing about that was awful. That was pants, as Tracy would say. But it's going in the bottom edge. I'll put it towards the back so we can cover that up. go. That'll fit better so it doesn't go over the score lines and bind up the front of the box. I'll put the tiny tear towards the back so it will not be noticed. Okay, so this is how I decided I want to... I'm not going to attach this yet because I'm not sure if I'm finished in there. So this is how it's going to look. So this is what I decided to do for closures. Is what I want to do is put these on as straps, and I'm going to glue magnets to hold this on for closures. So, do I want the magnets to go on the strap, or do I want the magnets to go on the flap? I think the magnets on the flap make more sense, and the straps will just basically be a decoration. So that's what we'll do. Okay. I have a thin magnet. Get approximately where I'm going to need to put it. Because I want to cover up the magnet with the paper. So if I'm I'll set the magnet in about 1 3/4 inches central wise from the side. Alright, let's see. I've got some score tape here. Tape this in place. And the second one will come in about 1 3/4 inches. Alrighty, let's see how that works. I'm gonna have to get the magnets. Is that what you're telling me? The washer's not gonna work. Sometimes you can use a magnet and a washer if the magnets are strong enough. I think going through so many pieces of paper, I'm going to have to use 2 magnets. That's okay. I got plenty of magnets. There's 1. There's 2. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll put a little drop of glue on here. It will mark where the flap, where the magnets are going to go on the flap. So I can I will take and I will put some score tape on and tape them on. Then I will cover them up with my designer paper. Well, that's good. Got them in the right place. So what I will do is take off. This is always a joy, trying to take off the backing off the tape. There we go. And I will put on this piece to hide the magnets. Okay. There. That works great. So now these will just be faux straps, which I will just glue down to the top here. Okay, guess I might as well glue it down. Alright, so kind of it's a lot of fitting when you're doing this kind of thing, because I'm not measuring this part because I just want to kind of do it by eye. It's all aesthetics. Okay, so at this point, so that's, here I said I'm not measuring, but I'm a bit anal like that. It's almost, it's 1 1/8 inches. Look at that. Pretty good eyeball. That's 1 1/8 inches. So now these are glued on, so the magnet's holding. So we can add a brad, and I think we will add some brads to this part of the strap here, to the back part. All right. I don't know. Let me think about that for a second. Let's see. Is this gonna fit? All right. It's gonna fit there, so. Right. I'm not going to put on these pieces yet because we have yet to decide. Oh, yet to decide where we're going to put the hinges, the faux hinges. So I will close this up. Faux hinges. Have to decide if I want them going this way, which I kind of like them going the opposite direction of the straps, or if I want them to go this way. I think I want them to go this way. Hence the reason I have not closed up this part yet. It'll make it much easier. Here's my block of wood, because this is where the faux hinge is going to go. I'll take my awl. I'm going to try and match it up, line it up somewhat with the one on the other end. Make my holes. At this point I can glue it down, which will help me hold it in place. Since I decided I wanted it to go that way. These are just 1-inch strips of the designer paper, which I cut and bent around the bottom of the, then I inked and just rounded off the corners. Try not to stab myself on camera anyway, that would be horrible. This awl is pretty sharp. Okay, decide what color I want to use. I think I'm going to go with kind of brassy colored. Yeah, that looks kind of nice. by making the hole with the awl, it keeps the hole small so the brad is kind of snug when it goes in. Wrong one. I'm using the antique looking ones. Hope you all are doing great. It's still pretty hot down here in Georgia, and we're on the lookout to see exactly where that hurricane is going to land. We're hoping it misses coastal Georgia. It would be nice if it missed the whole U.S., but we're in coastal Georgia, and right now we're in an RV at my daughter's, but we have a boat that we live on as well. A sailboat, which is not too far away, about 8 miles, which we travel on in the wintertime. And so hopefully we won't have the issues we had with, like we did with Irma last year. That was quite hairy and scary, being on the boat during Hurricane Irma. We were about 15 miles up the Savannah River, or the Ogeechee River rather, near Savannah. And, we were safe. Wasn't too bad. That's the thing about living on the water and living out in nature. You are an actual part of nature. So, okay. So, see, this is the reason why I left off these, so I could cover up the workings of the hinges. Oh yeah, that's going to look nice. Very nice. Alright, well, might as well glue these down now then, since I've got the hinges on. Or the faux hinges. Yeah, using 110-pound cardstock that I've printed these on makes the box just a little bit more sturdy. Now, at this point, you could not only... uh-oh. Did I get that up a little too high? Sometimes did I get that up a little too high? Oh, you bugger. You are a bugger. Is this one smaller? This is the thing about dry fitting. See? I thought I was so smart. Not quite as smart as I thought I was to dry fit it. I will just take a sliver. In fact, I'm not going to do it with this one. I will use this one since it cuts nicer than the little. Take just this, and it takes a sliver, just a sliver, off from, which is basically all I'm going to need off, I believe. Maybe a little bit more than a sliver. Maybe 2 slivers. Ink up the edge again. There we go. Dry fit it this time, like I said, because it's the smartest thing to do, and it will fit. you just love it when you do stuff on camera? You just sometimes have the funniest mishaps, like not having a piece fit properly, like it's supposed to, like that. Another thing I do while I have this part of the flap open is I add a piece to the inside of this. It adds a little bit more support. I used to make mini albums and with all kinds of flips and flaps and folds and stuff, so I tend to go a little bit overkill on my whole mechanical manufacturing process here, but that really gives a nice stiffness to that. Yes. Alrighty, so now I am ready to remove the score tape and glue this shut since the back is on. It makes it easier before you glue this down to put that back on there and cover up your mechanical workings to do that, yeah. Alright, now time to dry fit this and see if this is going to work. And it is. So I will take the score tape backing off my magnets. Now you can make these any size to fit any size journals you wish. I did recently make a prototype that's similar to this one, but I used the Tim Holtz buckles. And the only issue, and my husband and I talked about it because he's a welder fabricator and has made things his whole life, built me a house as a matter of fact 30 years ago when we got married. So that man can make anything and has. So sometimes I'll pick his brain when I'm making things, you know, just see, you know, how well structurally it's going to work. And I bounce ideas off him, and he likes to build things kind of overkill himself. And so when I put the other one together, and I'll show it to you, when I put the other one together, I posted it the other day on Foxy Crafters. I made these straps, and these straps I made these straps meet up and have a buckle. Well, I ended up gluing the strap part to Tyvek in order, because if I'm going to be opening it with a buckle, it'll eventually, it's just paper, I mean, it'll eventually tear and mess up. So so that's why I didn't do the buckles the same way this time. I decided to use the magnetic closure, and it seems to work just fine. So I hope you all enjoyed that. I hope you like this tutorial. It's fairly basic. Like I said, you can make them any size to fit any journals you might have, or they're fairly straightforward. I mean, don't get much more straightforward than that. You can put pockets in here. You can put a pocket in there to slide something in. There's all kinds of things you can do. You can add a few more brads if you want to these to make them look like hinges as well. I just wanted them basically to look like straps. But that's there she is. I mean, pretty basic. If y'all have any questions, please feel free to message me something in the comments below. I will gladly answer any questions you might have. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope this was informative and inspiring. And thanks a lot. Bye.